Hello audience, in this audio article we are going to cover a editorial which was published in the Financial Express on 16th of March 2023. Its headline is The Indo-Pacific's Defining Relationship, and the writers are Pradeep S. Mehta and Amit Dasgupta. And if we talk about the introduction, so respectively they are Secretary General at CUTS International and the CUTS and Australia and India Institute Distinguished Fellow. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's first visit to India heralded an extraordinary strategic expansion in bilateral relations. Albanese developed close personal equations with Prime Minister Modi during this visit. It would be fair to predict that this Albanese visits India again in the last quarter of the year, and PM Modi visiting Australia in May this year 2023 would see extraordinary consolidation in bilateral relationships. At one level, the visit consolidated existing partnership in prompting cultural ties, people-to-people contact, educational and skilling collaboration, cooperation in science and technology, and bolstering trade and investment through the common understanding on upgradation of the existing economic cooperation and trade agreement, that is ECTA, to comprehensive economic cooperation agreement, that is CECA, at another level. It placed focus on the Indo-Pacific through expanded security and defense cooperation, keeping the Indo-Pacific squarely in mind. On board INS Vikrant, India's first initially built aircraft carrier, Albanese referred to India as Australia's top-tier security partner and the centrality of the Indian Ocean for both the countries. For the first time, Australia would host exercise Malabar, which would involve naval ships from India, the US and Japan. Stepped-up military exercises by Australian and Indian armed forces were also announced, stressing their increasingly strategic importance as both nations navigate the challenge of the region together. The extraordinary pace with which India-Australia relations has leapfrogged has baffled foreign policy pundits and is a credit to the commitment and constancy with which Delhi and Canberra have focused on not only mutual interest and shared aspirations but also futuristic agenda for the Indo-Pacific based on shared concern prompted by Beijing's expansionist and belligerent agenda. In fact, in less than a decade, Prime Minister Modi's 2014 visit to Australia lifted the relationship from lukewarm to pivotal influencer that has become in the Indo-Pacific. The bipartisan support has enabled External Affairs Minister Jaishankar to enjoy excellent relations with his Australian minister colleagues. One of the core compulsions behind this dramatic transformation in relation is the joint concern at Beijing's garrulous behavior, which has caused uncertainty in turbulence in the Indo-Pacific. Take the Pacific Island countries, for instance, where Beijing has initiated a series of interventions, especially in matters related to security. This has been a cause for great discomfort for Australia and India, as it could dramatically alter the scenario in the region. In an unprecedented gesture, Modi would be the first Indian Prime Minister to visit Papua and New Guinea. Earlier this year, Jaishankar visited Fiji. India and Australia will undoubtedly exchange assessments to align intervention in meaningful and sustainable manner to counter Chinese overtures in the Pacific Island states. The forthcoming Quad Summit in Sydney is similarly likely to explore how the grouping may further strengthen, so that smaller nations in the region see it as confidence booster. New areas could be introduced into the cooperation matrix, such as health, drug research and manufacturing, and international education and research. Defense and security are likely to remain a critical component of Quad agenda and a direct response to China's behavior. The previous government in Canberra had adopted a harsh line towards Beijing, which the current government has softened somewhat. At the same time, both Prime Minister Albanese and Foreign Minister Penny Wong are realistic in the assessment that China poses a strategic threat that Australian security interests are better served by moving away from singular dependence on Beijing, especially in matters related to trade. At the same time, it bears mentioning that the second most widely spoken language in Australia is Mediterranean. Relations with China goes back several decades, and the shifting from enhanced way of thinking will not happen overnight. Australian business knows that CECA, while important, will not immediately alter the status quo. After all, Australia-China two-way trade currently stands at $250 billion, which is 10 times as Australia-India bilateral trade. What Australia seeks to achieve, to borrow a phrase from Foreign Minister Penny Wong, is a strategic equilibrium, which is an evolving process. Robustness of bilateral relations depends entirely on the canvas of areas in which it collaborates. This is well reflected in the diverse and multiple verticals that both sides have jointly identified, such as education, research, skilling, health, and technology. To name a few, additionally, futuristic areas have also become the focus of strategic interest. For instance, joint projects in cyber and critical technology in space involving joint projects for development and ethical frameworks. Rules and standards are that to apply critical technology to help shape global technology environment in furtherance of an open, free rules-based Indo-Pacific regions. CUTS is engaged in a project to look at the evolution of standards for the upcoming 6G technology. There are various similar projects which will lead to good global outcomes that would reinforce India's image as a digital economic leader. The rapport establishment between the two prime ministers during Albany's visits hold great promise for the bilateral relationship and may well emerge as the most defining relationship in the Indo-Pacific. Notwithstanding, former Prime Minister and China supporter Kevin Rudd expected the uncalled for outburst that it could trigger an accidental war. Thank you, audience, for listening to us. Please leave us a feedback.